the number one player, number one quarterback in the class of 2025, flipped last week from LSU to Michigan. Now, I was out of the studio with the birth of my baby girl, but I want us to talk about this right now. What's the impact of Bryce Underwood making that flip for Michigan? Because there is a lot of layers to this when it comes to the future for Michigan, when it comes to the future of the Michigan offense, the conversation around the transfer portal. We'll talk about all that right now. First things first, if you're a Michigan Wolverine fan, if you're a college football sicko in general, make sure you're subscribed right here. National Signing Day around the corner. College football playoffs around the corner. Basically, everything that is crescendoing in this sport is around the corner, but we talk about the sport year-round. We appreciate you in advance for being dialed in. All right, we can't have a discussion around Bryce Underwood flipping from LSU to Michigan without having a discussion around the Connor Stallions run that he's on right now. It is generational in every single sense of the word. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, Connor Stallions resigned from Michigan staff last season amid their national title run, because of the allegations around the sign stealing and all that. That's a discussion for another time. Connor Stallions then goes and coaches high school football in the state of Michigan for a school, obviously that's not Bryce Underwood's school, but another school in the state of Michigan. After his season ends, he joins Bryce Underwood's high school staff for their playoff run. I don't know if there's any correlation. I don't know if there's fire to this smoke, but at the end of the day now, this is absolutely hysterical. If we were all like a percentage of the dedication that Connor Stallions is to his job, how good would we be? Let that sink in. So the big thing I want to talk about here for Bryce Underwood as it pertains to his future and as it pertains to Michigan's future, in the 12-team playoff era, Michigan landed the number one quarterback in the class of 2025, number one player in the class of 2025. To me, guarantees that you now have a non-negotiable to win a national championship. This is all obviously contingent upon Bryce Underwood panning out as we project him to be the number one player going forward here in the class of 2025. But the point remains the same. In the 12-team era, you're going to have to win 3 at the least amount of games to win the college football playoff. 4, probably more likely than not, any given year. You can't hide a quarterback for 3 to 4 games. You can't. And I know a lot of people will push back and say, well, 2021 Georgia, that generational defense. That Georgia team, remember now, they lost in the SEC championship to Alabama that year. They didn't go wire to wire. They weren't unblemished. It wasn't until Stetson Bennett leveled up, became Stetson Bennett 2.0 that following season where Georgia was an absolute problem and a half and repeated as national champions. The point I'm trying to make here is if you don't have a quarterback in the new era of college football, that is a difference maker for you. When you get out there on Saturday afternoons and the rosters are about even, you don't have a guy that can elevate you in those situations, you're not going to win national championships. And for Michigan now, it's very, very clear. That is the standard. Like, yes, beat Ohio State. Yes, win the Big Ten, but go win a freaking national championship. You have a dude now in Bryce Underwood who can get you there, again, if he projects how we assume he will end up projecting to the collegiate ranks. So that's massive. The other discussion here is the fact that Michigan's in the freaking ball game, baby. Michigan's in the, hey, clap it up for Michigan, man. Clap it up for Michigan. Getting in the NIL ball game is what I'm speaking to, because what we used to say about Michigan with how they would operate on the talent acquisition side is very different than what we're seeing here in this Bryce Underwood discussion with him committing to Michigan. The rumor is Bryce Underwood and his NIL package fell somewhere in the range of double-digit millions. All right? Like, yeah, that's being in the ballgame pretty transparently. Previously, it was Michigan's going to be a team that maybe they'll utilize NIL here or there, but for the most part, they're going to go after their kind of player. They're going to go after a guy that fits their system. It might not be the 5-star. They may not have a top 5 class on National Signing Day, but they're going to make sure they have their guys. And then in 3 or 4 years, those 3 stars, those 4 stars, they're going to eventually start playing like 5 stars within the structure of what Michigan football is. That's great. You can still have that development apparatus, but what if you add better raw ingredients to that developmental apparatus? Then how good could you be? When you add a 5-star into the already tremendous developmental process you have in-house in Ann Arbor. Think that's worth noting. So obviously, I mean, you very clearly are willing to be in the NIL ballgame for a guy like Bryce Underwood. I'm not so sure now that Michigan, one, doesn't already have a plan in place to go acquire more top talent. I think that's going to happen. The other part of this, I think if you're Michigan, man, you taste some of that success on the recruiting trail. Success is a lot of things. Addictive is one of those main things. Like, I think you land a top quarterback, you're like, man, Give a mouse a cookie, they might want some milk. Give Michigan a top quarterback. Maybe they want some skill players to go with that. Maybe they want some other big-time offensive linemen, some defensive players. I don't know what it looks like, but I promise you, Michigan, they're not done. They're in the ballgame, and I don't think Bryce Underwood is the last acquisition for them on the recruiting trail when it comes to top talent before National Signing Day. Now, I think there's some folks that will look at this and say, it's a lot of money. You're right. It is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a kid that hasn't played college football yet. Totally fair. I think the discussion and the differences between going after talent at the high school level at the quarterback position versus talent at the quarterback position via the transfer portal is something we're going to get more data on here as we move on throughout the next couple of seasons. Full transparency, I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan ended up going after a one-year fix in the transfer portal at quarterback to allow Bryce Underwood potentially some time to develop. Again, I don't know. That just wouldn't surprise me. But here's what I would say, too. Like, with the lack of success you've had at the quarterback position this season at Michigan, in this new era under Sharon Moore, it was very clear there was like some sense of urgency to get that figured out. And when you take a big swing, man, you take a big swing when you need some runs and when you got a fastball coming down the middle of the plate. Michigan, what I just spoke to, needed some runs based on what their quarterback room was. Michigan had a fastball down the middle of the plate with the top quarterback in America living 30 minutes from campus. You go take a big swing. And depending on how much you make contact, you may hit it over the fence, but I tell you what, man, you lay your head on the pillow at night if you're Sharon Moore and you know you did all you could, whether it be the powers that be with the NIL resources, whether it be the conversations you have as a staff with Bryce Underwood and his family. You make sure you did everything in your power to swing as hard as humanly possible to make contact. And clearly here, Michigan hit a home run. So now I want to just touch on this really quickly for the LSU side, and this is not an LSU discussion. I just want us to at least say this. If you're Brian Kelly, man, the reports are that Tom Brady is having multiple conversations with Bryce Underwood leading into this recruitment. Again, $double-digit million is what we're talking about here when it comes to the alleged NIL package for Bryce Underwood. What are you supposed to do, man? Like, you got the greatest of all time ever to play football, talking to Bryce Underwood about why he should come to Michigan. I'm not excusing Brian Kelly, but I am saying here, like, I give a lot of credit to Michigan more so than I think I fault LSU for this whole thing falling apart. I guess we'll see if that ends up being the case. Vibes are incredibly high in Ann Arbor, as they should be right now. And I think there's going to be a lot of folks now, and that people I've already seen on Twitter that are saying, well, Michigan, they just dropped a bag, and that's why they got Bryce Underwood. And again, I don't know if that's true, but that's one thing that people love to say whenever they don't land a top recruit or a recruit flips away from them. Again, I don't know if that's true, but if that is the case, if it was purely about money, let's not shout about being broke, shall we? Let's make sure we don't yell that we didn't have the funds to match, or we weren't willing to match the funds of a Michigan to keep a top quarterback. I don't know if that's the case, but I think that's not necessarily the argument that maybe it would have been in the pre-NIL era. Oh, they just paid a kid. Yeah, everyone's paying kids. You would be well advised to pay a kid as well, potentially more than whoever you're competing with. So a lot of factors to this, a lot of facets with this. We will obviously continue to talk about recruiting as we move full speed ahead towards National Signing Day. Bryce Underwood, flipping from LSU to Michigan, the top quarterback in America, is staying home. He's going to be a Wolverine. Make sure you're locked in here. We appreciate y'all being subscribed. Caden Smith on the ones and twos for myself, JD PicKell. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. Going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.